Merry Morgan Christmas. Merry Mary of the Devilmas. Mary of the Devilmas. We're playing Of the Devil. The most peak game. The most peak Ace Attorney game. Of the Devil. The game's updating. Have you seen that video that's like Focus M, Bowser's Castle is just right ahead? And it's just like making fun of AAA games. It's really funny. There we go. The game's finally launching. Mother? Mother? I forgot how mother she was. Mother? I wish I looked like that. How can I be of service, Mid-Eye? You're already being quite accommodating, both to me and my family's interests. I came here tonight to be of service to you. I understand that you're somewhat new to this underworld of ours. I'm grateful for the offer, Mid-Eye, but inexperienced as I am, I've gathered that House Ikaria didn't come into its fortune by being generous. Would you like to know how House Ikaria did come into its fortune? I know you operate a lending corporation with a significantly diversified portfolio. And I know you founded a pharmaceutical company and profited immensely when it went public. And before that? I know your family became nobility during the years of civil unrest, no doubt by being well positioned when the time came to reprivatize our nation's industries. I know you slaughtered the Blue Bloods 30 years ago. Very good, Counselor Morgan. You've acclimated to our waters remarkably fast. What I don't know is why Makoto Ikaria has been the target of multiple kidnapping attempts over the past year. You can't fathom a guess as to why the Blue Bloods might want to ransom the family's heir? That's the only guess I can make. It strikes me as shallow. Nothing more dangerous than waters you don't know the depth of. As you said, 30 years ago, the Ikaria cartel, an unrecognizable band of brutes and drug smugglers compared to today, massacred the respectable Blue Bloods and left their geriatric leadership to die on the vine. But we thrust the knife much deeper than that. You went after the heirs and the entire future. Are you familiar with genetic factor authentication? Using DNA as a password? Blood specifically, easier than memorizing a string 3 billion characters long. But GFA's fallen out of favor, hasn't it? The Blue Bloods made ample use of it back then. A bad bet. They had all the offshore accounts, business tables, property deeds. The Blue Bloods thought they had already won, that they were establishing a dynasty. So they made their political marriages. They bound their alliances and fortunes in literal blood. GFA was with the financial and symbolic laundering of the Blue Bloods' past. Their children, now married, clean-cut, and perfectly respectable, would prosper alongside wealth, no longer tainted by ill-gotten gains. So that GFA registry became the Ikaría's checklist. We went through and crossed out anyone that could have accessed those funds. Now all of it sits untouchable overseas in encrypted digital warehouses and some of the oldest, most austere banks in the world, collecting interest that will never be claimed. Does that answer your question as to why they target Makoto? No, and you know it doesn't. Because if they thought they could lock you out of your coffers by killing Makoto, they wouldn't be trying to take him alive. You're paying attention. I like that. Duh. We don't use GFA, and Makoto is the heir to the House Ikaría. He'd never be tied to our legitimate banking information. Why not? What if he wants to buy a lollipop? A lollipop would be provided for him. The family's black market proceeds and its white market holdings must never mix. How can he stand atop the backs of many? And you all take this division that seriously. Deadly seriously. That is our family's rule dating back centuries. Either you serve the house or you serve its interests, never both. So you're either assigned to the criminal organization, which registered as the IP, or to managing the family's legitimate business holdings like Renegade. So you're either a criminal or working for the legitimate businesses. But that means you are nearly as much of an outsider to the Ikaría financial group as you are. Nearly is doing a lot of work there. Who do you answer to then? Who controls the Ikaría's legitimate empire? Until Makoto marries his mother. And I think if Makoto isn't solely responsible for the house's affairs at his age. Yes, the house is led by his father Raphael, but more directly by his grandfather, our patriarch Daisuke Ikaría. The Blue Bloods wants to hold Makoto hostage to gain leverage on the likes of Daisuke. Had things gone even slightly different 30 years ago, the Blue Bloods would be the ones shaking hands with politicians, marrying ambassadors, and sitting in boardrooms. Some of them believe it can still be so if the right match were made. They want to marry in the House Ikaría. That's why they're kidnapping Makoto. But Makoto's and all the real Blue Bloods are older than... They find an age-appropriate adoption. You're missing the point. They need Makoto alive and well to negotiate that kind of reversal of fortune. So they've been trying to capture him for the past year. But every Blue Blood I met today seemed to care a lot more about getting revenge for their dead men than kidnapping a preteen. How many of them do you think Sosuke's cut down in the last year he spent repelling their attempts? If the old guard are throwing young bloods into an Ikaria shrine en masse trying to capture Makoto just to elevate themselves, I suppose all that might total up to enough motivation for them to torture Sosuke, yeah. I'd heard he was wounded. No one informed me that he had been tortured. Sosuke deals in matters unrelated to my side of the family, but he is still family. Speaking of my side, I have a duty as a representative of the wing of my house to stress that we do not want this trial to be prolonged. Do you care about the outcome? A win is always preferable, but not a necessity. Makoto Ikeya hired me to prove Sosuke's innocence if he's the one signing the checks. Did he say why he hired you? He hired you for two reasons. Reason one, his options are limited, more limited than he suggested, no doubt, to keep a strong front. The entire house is currently being audited by the state. Usual legions of lawyers and accountants are already billing hours as fast as they can, so he wouldn't have his pick of the litter. You share a pool of lawyers? Whatever lawyer he did find through the Ikaria's usual connections would, like me, do whatever is best for the house as a whole, and not what's best for Sosuke. I'll make an amendment. 3 reasons. Makoto knew that if he didn't assign him any lawyer, Sosuke would just stay silent as the state dragged him off to be chained, rather than inconvenience the house any further. I've known Sosuke for less than a day, and even I can tell that he's never seen a cross he wouldn't jump at the opportunity to bear. That's why Makoto would hire someone without connections to the Ikaria. You slowly rowing another addendum that'll clear up why on earth my name came off of his desk? Littered with crayons and times tables, as I'm sure it was. I hope I've been able to elucidate matters for you. Masterfully subtle way to say we're done talking. Now I might ask you a small favor in return. Pass this message to Sosuke. If you see a way out, take it. Do you understand what you're asking him to do? Even if Sosuke took a plea bargain, even if somehow got the other charges reduced to manslaughter, self-defense, the state thinks he killed a cop. The message is for Sosuke, not you. Your interpretation of it is irrelevant. Enter conversation. As she reaches the exit, she turns back to look at me, lingering in the doorway like the warm buzz of a strong, dark cocktail. But your assessment is correct. If this were just 4 dead blue bloods, our dim little underworld could battle inside the ledger unassisted. If that cop hadn't showed up last night. Do you know something about the late Officer Chopin? City in mourning after death of City Councilman's beloved son in the line of duty. All I know is that his funeral dirge will make this 4 boys' death sound like a disinterested sigh. By the way, I must admit you have a lovely apartment, counselor. Changing subjects as suddenly as a bullet train hopping its tracks. Quite spacious for a defense attorney. Yeah, place wouldn't sell after the tram route got diverted. I negotiated down the rent and installed all the soundproofing myself. Can't open the windows without being treated to the sound of the city then. There's always a cost. That's one mystery solved then, isn't it? Enjoy the rest of your quiet evening, counselor. What was the mystery there? Listening as the deafened thud of her honor guard's implied violence stomps down the hallway behind her. I was still leaned back in my chair, staring holes into my ceiling long after the scent of her expensive tobacco had faded into null. Saving it while it lasted was beyond me at the moment. My attention's elsewhere. This case is knotted and twisted like a gnarled oak. Just when I think I found my rhythm, the blade runs dull. Carving is an exercise in patience and vision. You need to start with a clear picture of what you want. I want some answers. But for now, I'll sleep. Tomorrow in court, I'll just have to keep whittling away at the wood until I fashion something halfway usable. And, well, if that doesn't work, I'll use a chainsaw. Okay. Hey, cool kid. Yes, you, trying to look all stoic, staring out the window. Little late to try to look detached after that thing you pulled the other day. Is this Morgan back in school? So that wasn't a joke, making that announcement in front of the class? You trying to start a detective club or something? What mysteries? Disappearing cleaning supplies? Books not getting returned to the library? Sounds lame. Well, not like that's your fault. Everything's lame. Good luck finding members. Everyone around here already knows what they're going to do after school. And tomorrow. And next year. They're all staring down the barrel of a lucrative career and telling other companies how to provide web services or whatever the hell the school's supposed to train us for. A lawyer? If you say so, cool kid. The banks will probably have robots doing that by the time you graduate, but sure. Law school's supposed to be hard to get into. You'll need a record that doesn't suck. Getting the club you started shut down because you couldn't get anyone to join probably won't help. Wow, so confident. You really are a cool kid. What? Morgan, please, this is... Hold still and relax. This will be over soon. I thought you were joking about the makeup. Of course I wasn't joking. A face like yours is invaluable in the courtroom. And you think covering me in concealer and blush and applying eyeliner will help me appeal to what demographic exactly? You know the names of all this stuff? I'm a modern man. I know the name of many things, including makeup. Is that your eyebrow gel? It's cakey. Do you want to do the rest? I think some of the jury might find that his wounds might make him look rugged, and furthermore, from an aesthetic perspective, leaving some of his buttons end on well. Excuse me? You're clearly a very devoted martial artist, Sosuke. You should be proud to display your well-defined collarbones as the fruit of your efforts. Just hold still. Appearance matter in the courtroom. 95% of defendants who are ever seen in prison in garb at trial are found guilty. I don't doubt your tactics work, Morgan. My tactics included getting your suit pressed. Do you want me to wrinkle it back up? I just find them unpalatable. Trying to get the jury, these civilians, to pity me is shameful. You're worried about honor? Really? You're already a cybernetic ninja. Don't be a stereotype. Don't call other people stereotypes. He's right, Adonai, and he's more of a cybernetic samurai since he swung himself to a wealthy landowning noble. I'm confused, Sosuke. Is it honorable how your family makes money? Made their money? I'm not talking about morality. I'm talking about having principles. Yes, they're subjective, and yes, they can be hypocritical, but the further you stray from the common path, the more you need them. I mean, what about her? What would Sarah be like if she didn't have tenets to guide her program? They don't know! They don't know she can break her tenets! I can only imagine. But some people, believe it or not, enjoy their freedoms. Adrift in the middle of the ocean, you're free to go in whatever direction you want. But without a compass, you'll just die of exposure. If you only ever follow what the compass says, you'll say north until you freeze to death. The point is, if you have a compass, you know what direction north is. Fortunate for us all, then, that the state is a 1,000,000-megawatt North Star pointing towards complacency at all times. And the media is like the wind, and without wind, you'll get stuck in the tide. It was, a nice try, Sarah. Oh, forget it. Do whatever you want with your brushes, woman. And you're pouting again. Great. Sarah, just keep him talking. What? If I'm talking, how will you? Trust me, I've done more delicate work before. Sarah, small talk. Sosuke, do you happen to have any tattoos? Are the jury going to ask about that or something? They might. Oh, well, yes, I have a tattoo, a Komainu on my back. Komainu, a guardian dog. It's a fierce guardian deity. Like a Labrador or like a great, fierce, a big dog. Perhaps she should have it changed to some other design. Like a dragon. Hey! She's so proud of herself there. There's no switching. The buyer's remorse must be unbearable. There's no buyer's remorse. Lift your chin. You really think they'll feel bad for me because of some cuts and scrapes? You're not good at listening to instructions, are you? The prosecution has to get 12 strangers to agree that you killed 5 men. Each charge has to be unanimous. So any chip damage we can do, any doubt we can sow, we take it. And any advantage we're given, we make full use of it. But the advantage you're talking about is my face. Are you really not used to this kind of attention? Look, it may be true that at times some women have expressed, and men, no doubt. Bro said, you're a bisexual magnet? All I'm saying is bro clocked him. There's a difference between knowing your strength and powdering up like this. Pretend it's war paint. Is that how you see it? No, but I'm a grown-up. Thank you for entertaining my questions last night, Sosuke. Did she ask you about your dimensions? The subject might have come up. She's a talkative one, isn't she? Sorry she kept you up all night. No, she's no trouble, just curious. Reminds me of what? We discussed history. Oh, well then she must have put you right to sleep. It was his choice of subject. So you read history, Sosuke. Here I assume you spent all your free time frowning in the corners of room with your arms crossed. We talked about the Roman Empire for your information, and criminal empires. Nothing too detailed, I hope. But Sosuke, I still don't understand. What do you mean when you said criminal organizations used to be structured differently? Only that the old ways don't fit into our new 21st century world. Well, he's talking about race, Sarah. Race? I don't understand. Well, that's to be accepted. After all, you shared 98 of your components with a washing machine. That is untrue and unflattering comparison. Maybe you do get it. Look, Sarah, names like Mafia, Gokuru, Sanhi Hui, they all came from different cultures, but they all refer to a different kind of path, an outsider's path, and the pride that comes with living by your own set of rules. Those were the first criminal organizations, underground guilds, lending systems, militias, secret societies. Oh sure, they were basically just big friendly charities. Then the world got smaller and people started moving around and the mafia changed. It became a way for immigrants to band together to have some kind of power in places that wouldn't give them a chance at anything remotely respectable. But the world kept getting smaller, more complex, and eventually that kind of community couldn't form, let alone survive. Not enough shared experiences. Fancy way of saying the internet came along. Well, yes, technology negates the physical distance between people. When you spend most of your life online, you end up with more in common with people on the other side of the planet than your own neighbors, just because of where your recommendations take you. So the immigrant experience disappeared. Fractured, more like, cracked into a million shards with a hammer, while generational or economic experiences got cemented. The world is more diverse and varied than it's ever been in every sense, except economically. Wealth inequality is at historical highs, as it has been every year since before I was born. To answer your question, Sarah, that's what binds the members of a criminal organizations to one another, their socioeconomic status. House Ikaria is at the top. The Blue Bloods lie below us. Within each organization, the wealth is concentrated among the leadership, of course, but each mafia exists in entirely different strata. I've also read about an organization called the Rust being active here in the city. Are they in the poverty class then? The Rust? I'd put them in the anarchy class. Glowing tattoos and spiked hair, chrome biceps and sharpened teeth. The Blue Bloods, for all their faults, could put on a tie to go to work, but I can't see the Rust experience any kind of social mobility. Careful, Sosuke. If the Rust heard you being that classist, the Rust wouldn't care about anything I said or who I stand with. They don't need any excuse to start ripping open modders and grabbing whatever they can. Things like that happen in the city? Only in the shadows, Sarah. Nowhere you'd ever find yourself. Finally run out of steam? On to grim business then. How'd things go with your investigation? That bad, was it? Nonsense. It was pretty bad. With what I've seen so far, there's no one else who could have killed Chopin. Even if I managed to pick apart the evidence for the Pod's death, they got a police officer who will swear on the stand that he arrested Sosuke standing over his partner's dead body. You've never been inside a courtroom? Never as a defendant. I'm just wondering how many cops I should expect. In the gallery, a sea of blue. Cheap intimidation tactics. Yes, but I can't fault them for that. We'd line up much the same for one of ours. You say that, and yet I don't see any other Ikaria around. This is a completely different scenario, and the house can't afford to appear besides a cop killer when they're being audited to the state. I don't know. I think Sosuke is sad that his friends haven't showed up. Good catch. You were hired by Makoto of House Ikaria, weren't you? Surely he would want to be in attendance. Don't be absurd. Makoto shouldn't be transported anywhere without a full security team. Besides which, he shouldn't be put through the long elevator ride to the 48th floor just for my sake. What's so bad about an elevator ride? Is he claustrophobic? No. That is, yes, but you cannot tell anyone, understand? Who the hell would I tell that to? Right. Is that going to be important? Is Makoto being claustrophobic going to be important to the trial? Look, it's illegal to stream trial proceedings under most circumstances, but I'm sure House Ikaria doesn't mind paying a fine. They'll be watching from somewhere in the courtroom. That would be a waste of the house's coin, but I suppose they might consider keeping an eye on the case's progression. As will the Blue Bloods, no doubt. I don't know. I think Sosuke's spirits have rallied. Really? How can you tell? Emma! That's my toxic yaoi girlfriend! Hi, Emma! He lifted his gaze and his eyes seemed brighter, as if... good. Now try and keep his spirits high. Where did she go? Why was she on the screen? Think of something fun. Right. Sosuke, shall we arm wrestle? Oh, Sosuke's gonna get his ass kicked by the robot. Oh, good morning, Morgan. Good morning, Emma. You seem tired. Want to push this off till next week? Actually, that sounds... Hey. Sorry, but we'll be facing off soon enough. Why not savor the playfulness while we still can? God, you're so gay. Losing sleep over this case? Not really, no. Things look pretty cut and dry to me. What about you? You toss and turn all night before your big debut as a mob lawyer? Not at all. I slept like a rock. Lucky? I mean, I've been getting good rest, more or less. I've just been having a lot of late night recently. Late nights? Like, going out? No. Just late night chats. Chatting about what? God, look at them. Never seen so many cops in one building. You're deflecting, Emma! What are you hiding? They'd bring a marching band to the courtroom if they could. Theater. Right, well, theater and trial weren't all that far apart back in ancient Greece. Would hope we'd progressed since then. You don't approve of this show of force, I take it. Is it that obvious? I'd like to say this is because of who Chopin's family is, but we both know that's not what this is really about. A cop is dead. The state wants to make clear that isn't tolerated. Cops volunteer to protect their laws and protect us citizens. Volunteers don't get paid. Besides, cops, courts, the state, all they can do is enforce the laws, not defend them. Guns and arms can't defend against corrosion anyway. Rot comes from the deep. So you'd rather that the death of a police officer get the same treatment as any other citizen? Suppose that's not possible. They get increasingly fewer chances to play the victim every year, and they never let the opportunity pass. No, I guess the best I can hope for is that the state makes the same show of force whenever any crime is committed. If they treated every death like the death of a cop, maybe I could have caught HBK by now. You're still on that? Of course, shooting deaths are down, but do you know how many missing person cases there are in the city? How many deaths get written up as mod harvesting attacks gone wrong? It's a big city, Morgan. More than enough blood running through the streets for HBK to launder their kids in. Is she on to us? What, you don't believe me? Just last month, missing person. The report was filed by their employer when they didn't show up to work, 7 days after they had last been seen by anyone. They were just some part-time worker, no close friends, no family. They went to work, came home, paid their bills, and they disappeared. No one cared or even noticed until their job didn't get done and those bills went unpaid. No one noticed until they stopped buying in. Their body was found 2 weeks later. The decay was blunt force to the back of the head, something metallic with a sharp corner, we think. It was a relatively cubed machine part I pulled from the dumpster nearby. It fit snugly into my hand and came through his skull like a shovel through snow. Kicked into the bay, might not have even been weighed down, just thrown away like a cheap. That's terrible. Did you find any belongings on them? So probably a mugging then, right? No, there would have been other injuries from a struggle, and a thief who accidentally committed murder would be too panicked, too terrified to. You know how muggers think now? I can learn how anyone thinks, even HBK with a robust enough profile. Well, good luck building it all by your lonesome. I'm not working on this by myself. Ah, sorry, right. Did you want to beg for mercy real quick before we began? Now, where would be the fun in that? The courtroom gallery is quite full today, awash in a sea of pissed-off cops. It doesn't really shore up one's confidence, does it? 5 counts of murder would be newsworthy any day of the week. Add in the fact that one of the bodies belonged to a cop, and a crowd was to be expected. Didn't think they'd be so quiet. Maybe they're all just waiting for their firing pistol before they start casting their stones. Don't let it get to you, Sosuke. They're just posturing. Posturing, I understand. I've been attendant for my share of the tense negotiations, but the bloodlust in those rooms was always mutual. You don't feel any animosity towards these cops? I'm used to summoning my temper on command. I may have forgotten how to get angry for my own sake. You just worry about the jury. What about the adjutant? They cannot be intimidated by muscle, bribed with cash, or disarmed by fine tailoring. All of which makes them quite favored when it comes to prosecuting organized crime. Have you been in court many times before then? It's an eye for an eye in the world we operate in. We don't file assault charges, we just answer them. Though even that has become rare. The house is elevated. Blue Bloods and Rust and all the rest of the rabble will be on their reach now. And when it comes to our peers, we communicate very differently. Must make being a bodyguard pretty boring. I think your work sounds very rewarding and exciting, Sosuke. Especially the other day when you were captured and beaten by your rivals. Yes, what I was trying to hint at, Morgan, is that you should not be expecting assistance from the house. Honestly, the thought hadn't crossed my mind. Being on the winning side for once, what the hell would that even feel like? So there won't be any men in black approaching jury duty during lunch and offering them paper bags of cash? No. Well, if we do really bad, we won't even make it to lunch, so... Sosuke, what are you staring at? Are you looking for the jury? No, I know they aren't here. It used to be mandated that juries be physically present for court proceedings. People felt that it was important that they look the accused in the eye. To help them evaluate their character? Why bother? Most people suck at that. Always have. Perhaps it was considered part of the punishment, then. To have to look them in the eyes. A punishment for the jury or for the defendant? Alright, kiddos, chins up, shoulders out. Show's about to start. I just remembered. Do you think the judgment assigned to this particular case? Obviously, it's gonna be me. Obviously. Oh, it's you again. I mean, that's a gimme, easy. How? It's 80. What are the chances? The robot. Automated dependent adjusted. There should at least be 83 other personalities in this building's network, at least. Well, Your Honor, thank you for presiding so honorably. I do try, because it's a trial. Tougher crowd than usual. And that's not counting all the grim monoliths standing tall out there in the gallery. Who died? 5 people, Your Honor. Yikes! What's the damage? 2 counts of manslaughter, 2 counts of homicide in the second degree, one count of homicide in the first degree. Buddy, you tried to set a gold split with all that? What's with the record-setting grind set? I love 80. She's the best. The prosecution stands ready. So, shall we begin? That was cool. Now let's crack open those opening statements and get this case summarized. Gladly, Your Honor. People of the court, the defendant in this case is a man named Sosuke Ikuria. He was found to death at the scene of the crime where 2 men were shot to death. One was stabbed in the neck, another had their skull bashed in, and a police officer was impaled through the back with a sword. Cop killing piece of shit! Please spot any outbursts from the gallery that your mics may inadvertently pick up. Now, I understand that the scale of violence on display here may intimidate you, but I want to stress to you that your responsibility today is taking neither taxing nor complex. You will hear testimony, you will be shown evidence, and all of it will point towards the truth. God, we're so gay. That the defendant is the only individual who could have possibly committed these crimes. That is a simple fact, and the only one you need concern yourself with. Ooh, she's cold as ice, but every ice age beckons a kindling. For as ashes calls the cinders, and enders form champions. Defense is ready, Your Honor. Emma did stick to cold logic, so if I follow her with more of the same, it'll end up falling flat. The gallery will never warm up to us, but that can work to our advantage. If the jury comes to see these cops as witch hunters, easy to start a pyre. Choose the most outlandish words you can. Go for broke. It's not like Masters never taught me anything. I know how to do the razzle-dazzle. My fellow citizens, you were brought here today because an act of violence took place that could only be described as unspeakable. I should know. I was there. I saw the blood on the ground, the bullet holes in the walls, felt the malevolence that radiated in the air. And I also saw where my client was held prisoner. And I knew exactly where he must have stood, because his sweat and blood had stained the tile. My client, a decorated veteran, the man you see standing here, not even fully healed from his torture, was taken into police custody with lacerations, bruises, internal bleeding, broken bones, and while he was in police custody, he somehow sustained a black eye, a busted lip, a broken nose, and a boxed ear. A puzzle which I'm sure any one of the officers in the gallery today would be happy to testify about. Why are they showing us the stocks? You want me to object during an opening statement? Much is resting on the outcome of a trial. 5 men lie dead in the morgue. One of them, a police officer, Tariq. Don't speak his name, you mob lawyer, bitch! Hang him up! Hang her, too! Hey, we like to have fun in this courtroom, put on a good show, but that's because we're on the stage. Any more outbursts in the gallery and I'll clear the entire room. You can watch from the rest on your phones or peek through the keyhole like a bunch of sweaty looky-loos. Counselor, let's wrap this up. The fact of the matter is, on that night, my client was not in any condition to kill anyone, not 4 hardened criminals, and certainly not a trained police officer. And nothing about my client's background, his associations, or that of the victims can change that fact. So as you listen to all the evidence from this trial, with fairness and impartiality, and as I know you will strive to, I only ask that you focus on the reality of this horrible crime, and not on the fiction that the people will try to read for you. Thank you. Decorated veteran? You telling me you had never heard a single commendation? Most push-ups of the day or something? Never mind. I suppose it could have gone much worse. I was trying to be honest. The crowd got agitated, but you maintained a level head and recovered your tempo. Adonai is a master at doing so. I've seen her make comebacks from the most nonsensical mistakes before. In martial arts, they call it a yukemi, a graceful fall. Well, try not to gracefully fall when you see the first witness on the docket, Sosuke. Your name and occupation for the record. How can that... Oh, hi! If some blathering idiot in that courtroom doesn't already know who I am, they don't deserve... I know, but would you consider it only for the sake of ceremony? Ceremony is important and should be respected. Very well. I am Makoto Ikuria of House Ikuria. My occupation is that of a student. Try not to look so smug about it when you blatantly lie. Right, of course, and your position with the Ikuria Financial Group is not salaried. Must I really declare it here? Hard to imagine why the noble house of Ikuria is getting audited. Sosuke, are you alright? Can he see us? He can see me, Rockford, and the agenda. Witness teletestifying. Don't really need anything else. So, he's safe. Yes, Sosuke, he's safe, like he was yesterday. Probably sitting right where I left him, or standing on a box. I think the hologram's giving him a boost so he can see over the stand. That's good. The boost to his height? That he's safe at home. I'm sorry that he can't see you, Sosuke. Don't be. After horribly I failed him, I'd like you to speak about the events of August 13th. About the last time you saw the defendant, Sosuke Ikuria. I'm here today, not physically, but here nonetheless, as a courtesy. That does not mean I will flap my gums like some sort of flapping gum puppet. Permission to treat the witness as hostile incoming. Emma Rockford raking a spoiled brat over the coals. This will almost be worth the price of admission alone. That's so gay of you! Anyone of normal upbringing would barely be able to recall a single detail. Normal upbringing? I should probably dismiss you so you should get back to your summer studies. Summer studies? Like some common waif? Waif? That's quite the vocab. I didn't know they taught that in State Basic. Basic! Was I mistaken? Listen well, Madam Rockford, as I demonstrate to you exactly how misguided you are about my powers of retention. Played like a damn fiddle. Why wasn't she mentioned during any of our trial preparations? Exercises by subject did not seem to hear the question. Adonai's only won against her once. So far, every hot streak one starts somewhere. Hot streak? I really am going to prison, aren't I? Where shall I start? As far back as you can. For the past year, members of the organization most commonly referred to as the Blue Blood Mafia have been making attempts on my life. Did you steal their lunch money or something? I'm their primary beneficiary of my grandfather, Daisuke Ikuria's will. In common parlance, I'm the sole heir to the Ikuria Financial Group. You could buy so much lunch. The group you know as the Blue Bloods have been jealous of my family's financial foresight for decades. I'm merely the most recent target of their important attempts to nip at our heels. How impotent was their attempt then? I was leaving a meeting held on the upper floors of Crane Tower. My security details escorted me to the elevators, where we would then proceed to their canopy access floors by my head of security, Sosuke Ikuria, but the elevator became stuck with unnatural timing. When Sosuke pried the doors open, we saw that we were stuck between the 67th and 61st floors. Leading the witness, Your Honor? He didn't need a tool to open the doors. His bare hands were more than sufficient. Help Sosuke out here, kid. We submitted into evidence the defendant's Aikido Type 2 military-grade spinal mod designed to enhance strength, endurance, and reflexes for high-intensity combat scenarios. The decision was made that we would crawl out onto the 61st floor and head to the service elevators, but once Sosuke and I exited, the elevator started up. It was a trap. We had been cut off from the rest of my detail. You were isolated and defenseless. That must have been... Ha! Oddly defenseless. You really think my personal head of security wouldn't be armed? He had Yoru! Don't tell me you named your sword. All great swords have names. Thank you, Sarah. Very well put. Let the record show that the witnesses testified that Exhibit 2B3 belonging to the defendant. This sword was recovered by the police in a known blue blood den in the lower wards, found impaled in the body of Tariq Chopin, and forensics have shown the only fingerprints on it were those of the defendant. There's still time for you to disown it, Sosuke. You understand nothing about a swordsman's heart, Adonai. Once again, your paralegal has the right of it. Perhaps she should be leading my defense. That's my goat, Sarah. If this somehow turns into a fencing competition, I'll gladly defer to you two. So you, Sosuke, and Yoru were on the 61st floor together. When we arrived at the service elevators, Sosuke called them and they made a chime, and I didn't see much of what happened next, to tell the truth. Figures emerged from around the corners. They were aiming weapons at me, a red dot shone on my chest. And then Sosuke was there and a needle was sticking out of his arm. Yoru glinted, like Sosuke had drawn in the blink of an eye. Something glanced off it and dropped to the floor. I saw a syringe at my feet. Yoru's sheath was thrust in my arms, pushing me back into the elevator, and I landed on my rear. That's certainly a key piece of testimony. Let's play it back 5 times. What matters is that he pushed me back into the elevator with Yoru's sheath. How I landed is irrelevant and should be stricken from all public records. The only other thing I saw was Sosuke's back. He slammed his hand against the elevator's control panel and then the doors slammed shut. That's the last time you saw the defendant. The decision was made that I should get on a VTOL as soon as possible, but much of my details hid behind to assess what had happened. They were very helpful to building security and recovering Exhibit 5C, this hypodermic needle gun. What kind of bonehead would leave evidence like that behind? A bonehead in a rush, perhaps, Your Honor. Fingerprints match on the weapon match those of Creek. The model uses... I need to grab some water. This game has a lot of talking, so it takes a lot out of me. It doesn't appear to have been exhausted its gas canisters, so it may have outlived its usefulness. I take it this weapon is a match for the projectile needles found in the room where my client was restrained. Correct. Others like them were recovered from the scene of the ambush as well. Wait, so did they have truth serums with them at the ambush? Why? Makoto, did you see the faces of the men that attacked you? I can tell you every detail of their roughshod countenances. Oh, that sounds like a good bit of testimony. Hit it! Okay, we just have Needles, Yoru, and Yoru. A pineapple-head-like man and raincoat-clad hooligan came at us first. They aimed at me, but Sasuke got between us and blocked every shot. With Yoru, you could have closed the distance, but a dark-eyed scoundrel approached from the right. And a man with a ridiculous pompadour took advantage of that distraction. I never forget the faces of those cowards. They tried to kill me. So whatever happened to them afterward, I'm sure they deserved it. I'll have to fact check his description in order to get the ball rolling. Oh, I didn't mean to call on that. Needles, Yoru. What? Oh, I only have a limited amount of time? All my money, no! I don't know. This isn't it. I'm ass at this game. I don't know, and I don't want to waste all my money. Merry Christmas! Thank you! Thank you, Metal Wall. Oh my god! I'm losing all my money. I'm losing all my money. Oh shit! Is this one? Oh, my money, no! No, they didn't. They didn't try to kill you. That's it. They could have been trying to kill the witness, not with non-lethal projectiles. I'm stupid. I just didn't think it would be that simple. This sucks, dude. I lost all my money. My money. They fired a lot of them. The witness doesn't weigh that much. Don't try it. This is actually clearly planned with the intent of capturing Makoto alive. Meaning what? That for the case of victims who actually soft-hearted pacifists? There's nothing soft-hearted about what they did to my client after capturing him, using tools they clearly originally planned to use on the witness. So they're sadists. I'm getting confused here. So is the defense, Your Honor. What matters is that the witness has identified the defendant's captors as the 4 blue blood victims he is accused of murdering. Makoto did establish that much, but something about this attack still bothers me. Emma put Makoto on the stand specifically to identify the victims. Is it possible that the men who attacked them weren't in Creek's pod? No, I'm gonna stay. I don't disagree, Your Honor. The men who attacked Makoto and took Sosuke captive were the same ones that ended up dead last night. But 2 questions do occur to me. Why were you safe on the service elevator if Sosuke surely collapsed the moment it shut? Would these men have pursued you by any means necessary? I can answer that, Your Honor. When the police inspected the scene, they found that the control panel for calling the elevator on the 61st floor was broken. Smashed, in fact. The attackers would have had to manually pry open the doors even to attempt to chase after Makoto, and that would take remarkable modded strength. Did you mash the button that forcefully, Sosuke? I may have used more force than necessary. I wasn't exactly trying to hold myself back at the time. He hit the controls hard enough to break them, so the blue boys couldn't pursue you further, and instead elected to take Sosuke captive. A Sosuke in the hand is better than a Makoto in the bush. The head of Makoto security was surely made for a valuable source of information for planning future attacks were he made to talk. Are you denying that? No, but I would like to ask the witness one other question. Why did you get off the elevator in the first place? Hey, what I mentioned in the lobby earlier, the mic's not be picking it up on it for you, but from what I'm saying, I can't help but overhear my client groaning about how badly he failed you. That's not evidence or testimony and should be stricken from the record. But we get the idea. So he was bailing out early the defendant's big brain idea? As head of my personal security detail, such as a decision is ultimately his to make. However, that decision may have been influenced by his knowledge of the fact I am not especially comfortable in it in close spaces. What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to humiliate him? In part. I'm also trying to insult you. Had we simply waited, we would have remained safe, but I was not comfortable and felt very warm, so it was not a tactical failure on Sosuke's part per se, just an error of judgment. Counselor Morgan, what's up? You can disconnect the call if... Ask me another question. Ask me about how bravely Sosuke defended me. Huh, so that's your angle? We can't at us all be naturally gifted as extracting valuable testimony out of spoiled brats as Emma, but I can follow her example, insult their pride, and these Ikariya snap back, reliable as any knee-jerk reaction. And in Makoto's case, with infinitely less resistance than had I simply asked him to testify. It's usually the lawyers who do the asking and the witnesses who do the answering. This is not very realistic. We asked that the witness testify for the court in more detail about exactly how valiantly Sosuke fought off the attackers. And I guess the people don't object, even though it seems super extra. No, the people don't object, Your Honor. Emma's playing passively. Either that or I'm onto something here, or I'm walking into a trap. Screw it. Either I'm walking into something here, or I'm falling into a trap. Screw it. All in on the former. The needle gun, the medical records, and the needles. Hey, these are from them punching him. The laceration on the left... The bone's broken in the left hand. Let's listen to the argument first. Sosuke was outnumbered from the beginning and protecting me the whole time. It didn't matter we were ambushed or that the Blue Bloods had projectiles. That's true. Sosuke took up Yoru in both hands and swatted their needles out of the air like a graceful swatter. He fought off 4 attackers without sustaining a single injury. Unscathed is the last thing anyone would call my clients after the events of that day. How much money did I get from that? 53? One look at his medical data from when he was arrested will tell you that much. The defendant's injuries were sustained at the Blue Blood's den, not at Crane Tower. The police didn't even find one drop of blood anywhere near that service elevator. Well, that is a miracle, a bloodless ambush, but the fact that no blood was found actually makes it more painfully obvious as to what happened in the elevator panel. The elevator panel? My client broke half the bones in his left hand. Oh, that's what happened! He smashed it against something hard. I might have. There was a lot of adrenaline at the time. Did you not form a proper fist? Was your wrist not in alignment with your forearm? As I said, Sarah, there was a lot of adrenaline. Do you deny that his medical record clearly shows that his left hand was broken? Your Honor, what does it matter that the defendant broke his left hand closing that elevator? I did. That was the last part I saw a guide for, so from here on, I'm completely blind. It changes nothing about the witness's testimony. Sure. True, Sosuke's hand doesn't change what we learned from this witness, but it does change the evidence you had him identify for the court. Yoru. Yoru. Its name is Yoru. We get it. wielding Yoru with both hands. Did you have a point to make? There's something odd about the katana that's been entered into evidence. Something that makes no sense given what we've learned about the outcome of this ambush. Can I check my... There's only right hand. He said he was gripping it with both hands, but there's only fingerprints of the right hand. Namely, the swords... Namely, the fingerprints that were found on the sword handle. Fingerprints belonging to Sosuke's right hand. You're contradicting yourself, Counselor. We've already discussed how it was the client's left hand that he broke closing off the elevator. There's nothing contradictory about him using his right arm to wield the blade. It can be like this because Sosuke has two hands. The people are correct. The sword found at the scene of the crime has my client's right hand's fingerprint on the handle, despite the fact that this witness just testified Sosuke was swinging it with both hands, like a graceful swatter specifically. Oh, yeah, he did say that. So did the little tyke misremember? It was a chaotic situation where he feared for his life. The court should hardly expect him to have kept track of such an inconsequential detail. Have you already forgotten my magnanimous powers of recollection? Her tactics from earlier backfired. I have you know I can recite all of my subordinates' birthdays down to the hour. Write them all down so I can calculate their moon signs later. It doesn't matter whether the witness is mistaken about Sasuke's grip, Your Honor, because we have a much bigger issue to address. Why the sword has only my client's fingerprints on it. Makoto testified that Sasuke wielded this katana in his defense. Is this a trap? An act of bravery that ended with my client face down on the floor of Plain Tower. He later woke up captive in the lower wards. I stated the obvious and said that while he was unconscious, he was moved. And so the sword we have in the record must also have been handled by... Creek. Our poor victim Creek, of course. What do you mean? Banger? Sasuke was knocked unconscious at Crane Tower. That means someone else must have brought his sword down to the lower wards. And the only people who could have had the opportunity to do so were his captors. You mean his victims? Withdrawn. The defense is forgetting a fairly simple fact, Your Honor. There's more than one way to hold a sword. Oh, worm? Oh, worm? What the fuck? In case the defense needed clarified, Creek has simply held the sword by its scabbard. Creek can't have held it by the scabbard because the... That's not possible, Your Honor. Makoto already testified that Sasuke left the sword scabbard with him when he thrust him back into the elevator. And since the cursed sword can't be resheathed until it tasted blood. Yes, Your Honor, very well said. We would have found the scabbard at the Blue Blood's den if Creek or his men had taken it with them. Instead, I imagine Makoto took it home. Do you think he took key evidence from his own assault and kept it from the police? Of course I did. As if I would trust any officers of the law to properly handle a family heirloom as precious as yours, sheath. Impressive insight. But what does this actually mean? Is there some mistake with how the evidence was handled? There's no mistakes here. This was all done with intention. The intention to frame my client. Oh, she did the slam thing! Let's go! She did the Ace Attorney thing! That's my goal! She's so hot! And attractive! And... successful! I would not murder anyone! By putting his fingerprints onto that sword after the real culprit had already handled it. What a load of bullshit! And the crowd goes wild, though it does make a certain kind of sense. Because it's the truth. I did wipe that katana's handle down after removing it from Trey's throat. Sasuke just happened to be foolish enough to pick it up himself afterward. It's frustrating I have to keep my best cards up my sleeve this time around. But the look on Emma's face when I do get to toss them out is... oh shit? The people are more than ready to counter if it pleases the court. Oh. The defense has made an admirable effort to barrel ahead with its theory. Banger? Is this a new song? Banger? This sounds like an Ultra Kill song. Ultra Kill fans when they hear a harpsichord? No, but it's the drums combined with the harpsichord. The defense has made an admirable effort to barrel ahead with this theory. Admirable, but predictable. With the foundation this week, charging ahead and hoping the court won't notice is the only option. Let us speak on the facts. This Creek character led a targeted ambush on the Hair House Ikariya, knowing he'd be fully guarded by a full security team. The Blue Bloods successfully sabotaged and intercepted Makoto's elevator at the precise floor they wanted. Meaning they knew exactly where they'd be and when. And they brought with them the drugs capable of disabling a veteran with military-grade mods. Planning and attention to detail may be a foreign concept to the defense, but they should at least be able to recognize them. So is the defense seriously suggesting that after all the preparation, Creek's pod wouldn't bother to wear gloves? I'm glad you asked so nicely. This has Creek's fingerprints on it. We don't need to speculate about whether they wore gloves or not. Now when we have Creek's fingerprint on a weapon recovered from the crime scene, that is a pretty good point, actually. Guess these guys were sloppier than we thought. Those blackguards were barefaced when they attacked us. Idiots, as if there wouldn't be repercussions for their actions. The least they could have done is disguise themselves. Strike that from the record, Your Honor, along with any future comments that suggest that Ikariya would want revenge against these victims. I was only speaking of plain truth. Creek was their leader, correct? If even Creek wasn't wearing gloves, it's hard to imagine that none of them got their prints onto Yoru. Unless the sword was indeed wiped down at some point afterward. Like right around the time that the true culprit was looking for Sosuke to take the fall. A far-fetched, unstable theory that attacks presuppositions upon each other, like a flapjack chef substituting quantity for quality. I'll rephrase. This inconsistency is easily answered without jumping through the defense's absurdly arranged hoops. We already know that the Blue Bloods had successfully taken down the Ikariya's head of security. And we already know that they went out of their way to take the defendant captive despite him not being their original target. Furthermore, as the defense is belabored, we know that they decided to take a useless piece of steel with them from the scene of the crime. Useless? If we ask why, the answer is obvious. Because orcas are superstitious and immature. They wanted a trophy, and what is there to do with a trophy other than to polish it? The cloth from Creek's desk. I knew she flagged it in the arcs for some reason, but she thought this many steps ahead? The sword was wiped down before Sosuke took it up as his murder weapon by the very same victims he'd go on to claim it. That is a completely logical explanation, damn it. Check? We don't. I can't. It makes perfect sense. So does that mean that she's described what actually happened? Not at all. I wiped off the sword myself because my prints were off it. Same as I wiped my prints off of every other... Right. If I can't find fault with Ella's conclusion, I need to find fault with the logic that led her there. I see. And how do you do that? By adjusting my aim. As the people say, Your Honor, no one's fingerprints but my client's are on the murder weapon. That only makes sense if he's guilty or he's being framed. And there's no evidence to suggest he was framed because the captors had valid reasons for wiping off the sword. That's not the murder weapon I'm referring to. The gun? The gun is the murder weapon I'm referring to. The police are confident that this MAG US is the gun that was used to kill Tanks and Creep. And your client was arrested with it on his person, and has your client's print on it. But it was owned by Tanks. The record shows that Sosuke's are the only fingerprints on the doohickey. So that means the Tank guy never laid a finger on his own gun? It's entirely possible that Tank simply liked to polish his own gun too. Phrasing. So he was polishing it right up until the moment the captor grabbed it and used it against him. More phrasing. Was it before or after his internal bleeding that the client took the gun off Tanks without him even laying a finger on it first? Before or after being tortured that he got the gun with no struggle? They could have wrestled over the gun while it was out of reach. Tanks had no injuries besides a hole in his chest. How did he get into a struggle and get not so much as a scratch? Which seemed to come down to the order in which each individual died, no? Now perhaps we ought to hear more detailed testimony about that. Hold on, what are you saying? Okie dokie then, closing the connection. I said wait, it's Sosuke! Makoto seemed to be in good spirits, wouldn't you say? Yes, he was his usual approachable self. So how can you find something about that, like that, to be so depressed over? I'm ashamed that he testified at all. His appearance here runs the risk of sullying the house's visage with my mistakes. Well, he couldn't exactly slip the subpoena by claiming he had homework to do. You of all people should understand that the house doesn't have to appear in court if it truly doesn't want to. A fine levied on your account is always preferable to a smudge staining your reputation. But he did testify. Yes, and he no doubt went directly against one of or more family elders to do so. He should not be incurring debts for our sake. So he put himself at a disadvantage for you. Do you think Makoto would want you to apologize, or do you think he'd want you to thank him? He's young. He doesn't know what he wants yet. Yumi Sato. Hi! I missed you. Hi, Yumi. Sarah. Dr. Sato, we're very grateful for your work sorting through the large number of reports related to this case. What? Yeah, 5 bodies, all high priority. Had my head underwater for a good while there. We'd prefer not to tax you with repeating every grisly detail, but if you could you please walk the court through the time of death of each victim and the manner in which they were determined? Right. From the top, Ankertown, aka Tanks, had a mismatch of street legal and shop vodka along his forearms. None of them were particularly up to date, but they were all working, and they did monitor his heart rate. Tank's heart stopped at 9:44 p.m. The cause of death was... The slug had a hollow design, intended to shatter inside the target. He was killed from a distance of 1 or 2 meters. Next up was Trench. His heart stopped at 9:45. He died from excanduation, blood loss. That wasn't the only injury in his body. His skull was. Heavens Miller Smith received a puncture wound straight through his jugular vein. Then the... I wish there was a better way to sort these. Miller had mods, but had evidently gone to great lengths to remove modern tech from all of them, and was not done with any electronic classification. Using purely medical means, I narrowed his time of death down to a window of 10 minutes between 9:40 and 9:50 p.m. We know that he was killed 4th. They attempted to staunch their bleeding or even perhaps remove the weapon. No, he was killed 3rd. Even though I killed him 3rd and he was the second to die. And that brings us to Creek. Lakers Creek Kristoff was shot with a hollow slug of a distance from 1 to 2 meters. However, the slug penetrated just beneath their solar plexus and failed to shatter completely when it impacted a low-end spinal brace mod. As a result, Creek didn't die immediately. It is my medical opinion that Creek would have slowly bled out over the course of 5 minutes. Their mod did not have biomonitoring capabilities. So, like with Miller, I've done what I can to narrow the time of death down to a 10-minute window. So he was barely modded, and he stayed conscious that whole time anyway? Natural robustness. But we do have one other context clue. This data pad was found close to Creek's body. The technicians confirmed that it requires Creek's fingerprints. That means it's unlikely that anyone else would have been able to manipulate it. And when they saw that the last action taken on it was an attempted dart card transaction that failed at 9:44 p.m. What could cause a dart card? Either the hit canceled or the card was jostled, interrupting the scan, as if this data pad was suddenly dropped. Speculation. How much qualification does one need to understand that card readers can be a bit finicky? True enough, chip, swipe, pin, tap. Just let me buy the damn balloon animal, you clown. So, taking that digital evidence into account, Creek must have been shot almost exactly at the same time as Tanks. There's one more body examined for this case, right? Officer Chopin. I didn't need to determine his time of death. As a police officer, it's standard suite of police-issued biomonitors, so we know that his heart stopped at 10:14:04 p.m., triggered an automatic 1099 alert, officer down, lighting up that crime scene like a firecracker and ensuring every cop in the city would come running, royally pissed and safety's off. Chopin was impaled through his back by a long, thin blade. It severed his aorta, and as a result, he died instantly. This unusual pattern of aggravation must be important. We could include that Tank's gun was taken from him before 9:44. He and Creek were then shot with it. Their attacker, out of ammunition, took up a sword and stabbed Miller in the throat before slicing into Trey's neck. The individual then proceeded to posthumously crush Trey's skull by striking it so hard they shattered a baseball bat, as Creek bled to death on the other side of the room. Finally, when Officer Chopin arrived on the scene, they stabbed him in the back before finally being apprehended by Officer Rogers. So now Rockford's put together a timeline. It's probably helpful for the jury, but have we learned anything new about the culprit's actions? We have. Emma brought her on the stand to establish the culprit. The killer established where the killer must have started their spree. Okay. They were both shot from 1 or 2 meters. We know that the culprit must have been taking action from right behind the desk, and not the door to the holding room. So the likelihood that my client broke out from there is not very high at all. An abundance of DNA evidence establishes that the defendant was indeed held in the other room, but clearly he didn't remain there. His captors must have taken out to question him in the main room, and dragged him in front of the desk where Tank's gun would be within reach. You have evidence to the contrary? A better explanation of how he got out of where he was being held? Can't exactly propose that the real killer set him free as a scapegoat. The forensics are clear. My client was gagged and bound in that room. But they clearly had to cut him loose to question him. A mistake that ended up costing them their own lives. My body was telling me I was held in that room from the time I woke up until I got myself free. Emma's theory about the Blue Bloods being dumb enough to let Sosuke near a gun isn't perfect, but it's still a theory. I don't have jack shit to counter with because not even Sosuke knows how I let him out. Then they'll just have to take this out and meekly move on to their cross-examination. Shut up, man. Adonai, that made you sound very feasible. You developed a habit of only using we when I'm winning. Fix it. That made us sound very feeble? Why do I have to get roped in? Emma's already established a timeline in order of events. I could pick at the details, but she's close enough to the truth already. I know the truth firsthand about every death except Chopin. In his case, Emma and I are on equal footing. So what's my advantage? What do I know that everyone else is mistaken about? The murder weapons. Everyone thinks Miller was stabbed in the neck by the katana. I'm the only one who knows my knife was there. There's got to be a way that I can use that information to my advantage here without revealing I have it or how I got it. Dr. Saka, you were asked to examine all 5 bodies. Did you visit the crime scene? I did not. Have not. Photos and other art data was provided to me to aid in my examination. Surely the defense isn't objecting to a little virtual work. Of course not. After all, had anything been added or removed from the crime scene, the arts would show it. There's no fooling it once it had been set up. Victims Trey and Miller were both attacked with a blade. Exactly how fast did they die? Trey had his throat slashed and blood found on his neck hands revealed that he had time to reach up to his neck in response, but he would have quickly stumbled back and onto the floor, dead. But once that stopper was removed, he would have lost consciousness in mere seconds. And while the blade was still in his neck, if it was there for more than a second, he too would have reflexively reached up to try and grab the blade. Is there any evidence he tried to grab the razor-sharp katana lodged in his neck? No, he had his own blood on his right hand, but there are no cuts on it. Because he grabbed the knife's handle, not a sword's edge. So it stands to reason that the blade was withdrawn very quickly, but by the time his hands reached up to his neck, it must have been gone. One of many small inconsistencies with this katana theory I can shine a light on. Will that be enough? Stabbing Miller's neck so quickly and so fast, that would be quite the feat of swordsmanship. Stating a conclusion, Your Honor. Comments withdrawn, quick as a blade. Have you ever seen a stab wound like the one that killed Miller, inflicted by a long blade, and wielded in one hand by a man experiencing heavy blood loss? No, I can't say that I have. Now, whether that maneuver is impressive or improbable, well, I'm a doctor, not a fencer. And Sosuke doesn't own a rapier. Did you find that the stab wound on Miller's neck fit the sword that the police recovered? That doesn't sound conclusive. The entry wound is slightly smaller than I would expect for such a precise stab. The sword hand must have barely trembled, but it's within tolerable ranges. Furthermore, DNA on the tip of the sword is a match for Miller. Damn it, just because I had to drag it across the floor where his blood is dripped. And of course, there isn't any other implement at the scene that fits the wound better. No, of course there isn't. Stabbing Miller's neck would have so... Oh, wait. Could you speak a bit more about the manner of Officer Chopin's death? What does agitated mean? Honestly, as though after impalement, the blade was moved around inside the wound, as if it had become stuck and someone was struggling to remove it. London mentioned that Sato found this wound odd, but to hear her say the blade had become stuck in Chopin's body, that's interesting. Thank you, Dr. Sato. I think I can speak for us all when I say I found that very enlightening. Blackjack. I was playing some blackjack. I'll be right back. I need to use the bathroom. What is that? Wait, is that? Oh, that's the game. Alright, bye. I was hearing this ringing noise coming from the game, and I thought that was like a fire alarm in my house. Did this occur on the spot where his body was found? Yes, it did. The body shot showed no signs of being moved, then. I'm curious, then. What was there for the sword to get stuck on? Well, if Chopin was in the center of the room standing upright, I mean, it would have gotten caught on the air, right? Bone, perhaps? Surely you examined the wound inside and out. Did you see marks on his ribcage where the blade had been caught? No, I didn't. Then it stands to reason that the blade didn't actually get caught on anything inside, Mr. Chopin. It got caught on the floor. You need to take great advantage of the arcs, Counselor Morgan. Learn to flip things on their head. Entire rooms if need be. If you had, you'd see that there's a clear indentation in the floor that lines up perfectly with Mr. Chopin's wound. How do you think the tip of the sword got chipped? You're saying the sword got stuck on the floor. That's what the facts are saying. Do you disagree? I don't necessarily disagree, though. If Chopin was impaled and fell face first, it makes perfect sense for the sword to get caught in the floor as he collapsed on top of it. So we can conclude that after being impaled, Chopin fell over with the sword still in his torso, driving the sword to the ground, and then the attacker aggravated the wound by trying to retrieve the sword from his corpse. Does that sound right? What? Are you asking me? Sort of, asking the room, I guess. Well, I believe I can answer. What you're describing makes sense, Dr. Sato, but only if we consider up until we consider again the fingerprints on the sword handle. If my client really did impale Chopin and get his sword stuck doing so, why would he try to retrieve it with only one hand? Because he had to retrieve it with one hand. You yourself already elucidated that the defendant's left hand was broken when he destroyed the elevator in the claimed tower. His left hand was too damaged for me even to grip a sword? That doesn't square with this piece of evidence. The mag us? How could my client's left hand be too damaged to grip his sword and yet also be capable of gripping the mag US? That oddity is hardly impossible to explain. We've already determined that the mag US was fired twice before the sword was used at all. Firing such a weapon with a broken hand surely rendered his left useless. Oh, it is difficult to wield a sword with a damaged hand, isn't it? Historically, even the loss of a pinky on your non-dominant hand was considered enough to render you relatively defenseless. Is that why Yakuza would offer to cut off fingers as recompense for offenses? That's right, Sarah. In fact, cut the chatter and save the history lesson. He had to pull the sword loose with one hand because his left was useless. Looking at the forensics pulled from the katana, that's... Your Honor, the people claim that my client had to use one hand to retrieve the sword because his other hand was disabled. But does the evidence actually suggest that? What do you mean? Forensics performed of the katana found my client's right hand fingerprints on the handle. But what grip are the prints a match for? Let me just give it a quick think here as I meticulously analyze the position of each finger. A normal grip. The grip is normal. Do you mean to say that the thumb is facing towards the blade, Your Honor? Well, yeah, but isn't it easier to just say he held it like normal? If my client only held the sword with his right hand normally, that would mean he held the blade like that even as he tried to jostle the blade free from the floor, which is far from impossible. But if the court has questions about how exactly the defendant was positioned when he was found standing over Officer Chopin's corpse, I believe the people's next witness will be able to answer all of them. Chopin's partner. Very well, then let us summon to the stand. No, name not found. What? Is that a family or a given name? Yeah, I got one big ol' error here, and it's a classic. Witness not found, literally. He ain't here. What? He's had hours to get here. Where the hell could he possibly be? Her star witness was a no-show? Is this good news or bad news? Like hitting the jackpot on the world's sketchiest slot machine. Feels good, but you get the feeling the staff is going to make you pay for it. That idiotic! Pay for it when? Fine, I'll finish it myself. Right about now. Perhaps it's time for the best then, Your Honor. We can save the court the trouble by wrapping up things here and now. The facts are simple, and the defense has failed to refute them. Thus, the people call for summary judgment. The defendant is the only one with his prints on the gun. He is the only one with his prints on the katana. His own employer testified to the court that he was attacked and captured by 4 of the 5 victims. He was found arrested standing over the body of a dead cop before 2 more officers arrived and secured the scene. That must be Ray's in London. As the only living person left at the crime, there is no one else who could have committed these murders. She's on a tear, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't entertaining. But it's only because she's on tilt. She was thrown off by her witness flaking, and it's caused her to overstep. She just fired a lot of claims in quick succession. Where do I counterattack? Attacked and captured by 4 of our victims. She can't possibly prove that. She can't prove that there wasn't anyone else there last night because I was. And unlike her, I can prove the possibility of another party being present without having to reveal their identity. My client wasn't the only other person there that night, and there's evidence to show it. The dart card! The fact that the dart card was there, because he would not have a dart card. Boom. What is that? The dart card found lodged into Creek's datapad? That's right! The perfect payment option when neither you nor the business you frequent like attaching names to faces. We've already discussed that within moments of Creek's death, a transaction was being attempted on his datapad using the start card, but whatever for, perhaps some of the handful of illicit substances that were found at the scene of the crime. These guys were drug dealers. And drug dealers get customers, Your Honor. Customers that can be very temperamental when things go south. Are you trying to suggest that these killings were the result of a drug deal gone wrong? I mean, they sort of were. A drug deal made in person at a blue blood stronghold. Dark cards require a passkey and a fingerprint. The card would be useless if its owner wasn't physically present for the transaction. A transaction that might have been abruptly cancelled if tensions boiled over. A potential buyer would likely have been across the desk from Creek, the same spot that we've established that the killer must have started their rampage. Cute idea, Counselor, but there's no meat to it. We know that Creek was using the datapad before he died, and we know that the dart card was processing a transaction at the time, but for some reason you've made the assumption that he was selling, when the simplest explanation was that he was buying using the dart card that he owned. How will you respond? I don't need to respond with evidence. I just need to point out the flawed evidence she's constructed her argument upon. No, the dark card is known only to rich criminals. Characterization, Your Honor. The people are claiming that the dark card and the evidence belong to the victim, Creek, despite the fact that it has no fingerprints on it either. What? What? If that card had belonged to Creek, he would have had to insert it into the datapad with his teeth. So who did the dark card belong to? Perhaps a customer who didn't like his prices. A disgruntled customer could have wiped their prints off the card to hide the fact they were ever there. Banger? You're absurd. If a customer brought that dark card with them to the crime scene, why the hell wouldn't they take it when they left? It was stuck in the datapad. They could have pulled a little harder. They could have taken the datapad with them. Who would leave behind something that valuable? card is worthless to everyone but its owner. The human could be priceless. Why would they choose to leave it behind? The answer to that is simple, if I'm honest. We're discussing the possibility of a deal gone south. What could cause that in the first place? Aggressive negotiating tactic? Or a customer who couldn't pay? This customer could afford a dark card, and yet they couldn't pay. You're trying to say all these deaths, all this carnage, you think it's all because their card got declined? Hard to live down that kind of faux pas. Murdering 4 or 5 people in order to skip paying your bill is pretty aggressive, but if you need your fix. Was there any indication that the contraband was taken from the scene of the crime? Without knowing the inventory before the crime, we cannot rule out the possibility. Is she really that thrown off by this witness playing hooky? Well, I hate to do this because I love spending time with you all and having a physical body, but it does seem like we have to declare a recess while we wait. Perfect reasonable. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. What? Court is now in recess. So Aura Holdings is not a part of House Ikaria. No, it is. House Ikaria is comprised of the Little Ikaria family, the Ikaria Financial Group, and Audio Holdings. But each of those parts is a separate entity from the other. It can be confusing, but it protects us. Protects the house from itself. If everyone in the Ikaria family was a member of the IFG and the IFG was called the Ikaria family, that'd be so much simpler. I know it would be simpler, but that's... Who the hell is this guy to keep Rockford waiting? Are you addressing your question to me? I've never met the man. Well, he's met you, smacked you upside the head, and cuffed you. If you say so. I told you, I don't remember anything after I walked out of that holding room. Apologies, I was just trying to answer your question. Who the hell is Officer Rogers? You find his socials or something? I found a news story attached to a live feed. He's shaking hands with some men at the top of the stairs. Right now? What's the headline? City council members thank heroic officer for his service. Oh, well that makes sense. And without rank. If the politicians decided now was the time to be photo ops, she doesn't have the pull to go against them. Are Officer Chopin's parents there? Yes, both of his fathers were present. Adoptive fathers. Are you trying to make me feel better? Adoptive or not, they are his parents, and their pain is real. Of course. But their pain would be equally real if they weren't expressing it in front of those cameras, don't you think? If you're feeling guilty, Sosuke, please get it out of your system by the time the trial resumes. I don't feel guilty. Even if I did kill the officer, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. But that doesn't make it right. Parents having to outlive their children. And yeah, I thought you'd be all about filial piety. You telling me you wouldn't take a bullet for your patriarch, Daisuke? Of course I would. And force him to outlive his son? How could you? Adopted son from a branch family. Do I need to point out how badly you contradicted yourself? Daisuke Ikaria couldn't let me waste away while the rest of the Hayakawa branch was killed. Instead, he placed me at the right hand of power, a seat of honor, a subservient seat. All seats are subservient. Not the one at the top. I didn't know the rest of your birth family died. Retaliation for fall of the leaves. Quite dignified way to refer to the Ikaria killing of all those blue bloods 30 years ago. Anyway, it was my understanding that it was a complete and total victory. The kind that left the blue bloods incapable of counterattacking. Very nearly so. Do you disapprove of what happened 30 years ago, Sosuke? Of course not. The barbarity of the house's enemies left it with no other choice but to act. By the way, I was asked to pass along a message to you. If you're giving a way out, take it. Who told you that? Let's tell the truth. She said her name was Mirai. Who is she? A powerful member of the house on the side of Aura. Slow down, loose lips. I didn't ask for a whole life story. What? Oh, sarcasm. Sorry, I'm just surprised. Surprised she would take a personal interest in the outcome of this affair. Did that message mean anything to you? You're a terrifically helpful client, you know that, right? There's something you should know about me, Morgan, about the Hound of Ikaria. I didn't earn that title as a bodyguard or as a head of security, and I didn't learn how to kill in the military. The Hound of Ikaria is the house's personal assassin. What happened to the House of Ikaria being refined, elevated above their criminal past? The house is elevated. That status has granted it more enemies than ever, enemies that need to be taken out silently but undeniably. What I do is send messages. They need to be received by the right people, and they need to know who it's from. You kill so that other houses in the nobility know that it was the Hound, but can't prove that House Ikaria was responsible. Their own pride over being able to handle things internally and their humiliation at being outplayed ensures their deaths stay out of the papers. So the entire police force can descend on a jaywalker caught by a reflection off a dash cam, but the nobility gets to wave off the surveillance state with a perfumed handkerchief, flaunting how the rules don't apply to them. Like I thought, a very pure expression of power. So all that talk about you being Makoto's head of security, that was all true. I have been Makoto's head of security for the past year. Did your courier business dry up? Circumstances around Makoto had changed. I left to step in and fill a role. And what about you guarding the previous era, waving your katana as soon as you could walk? The circumstances were different then, too. Why tell me now? Because now that I've seen her, I don't think Rockford will have missed it. No, why didn't you tell me yesterday, the first time we met, when I could have actually prepared for this? Clearly you've got some deeply a desire to rot in prison since you won't help me with this case. But what happened in the last 5 minutes that you suddenly got cold feet? Yesterday I thought you were some outsider, in over their head, who would surely drown if they knew who they're defending. Today, I think you're an outsider in over their head, who could stay afloat with a lifeline. Thanks for the heads up. 5 minutes notice really comes in handy when your client asks you to catch a bullet. Excuse me. I'm sorry to disappoint you too, Sarah. I can't imagine you're pleased to be defending a self-confessed killer. I don't know what you went through when you were a soldier, and I have no idea what you've gone through as an assassin. Yesterday, Adonai suggested I shouldn't speak about those kind of things, since I have no experience with them. I don't know if she's right about that, but soldiers and assassins do live in this world, and they are still people. And I think I would be sad if I couldn't talk to any of them. Sarah, no! What about serial killers? You're too good! You're too pure-hearted for this world! Could you catch a bullet? No, Sarah. But you're a cybernetically enhanced martial artist. Bullets are very fast. I could probably catch an arrow if I knew it was coming. Tell me more. Oh, that's my little nerd. So you and your partner were the second officers to arrive at the scene. That's correct, ma'am. When the 999 went out, my partner and I were relatively central city. We were within jogging distance of the site after an elevator ride, so we proceeded on foot. Roger showed Emma rushed London to adjust the reshuffled docket. I assume he was rushed. He does seem somewhat distracted. We arrived on the premises at 10:21 p.m. At 10:27 p.m., we assisted Officer Rogers in completing his arrest of the suspect. What did that involve? Reading rights to an unconscious man? That's a good bit! We helped Rogers finish cuffing the suspect, is what I meant. His hands were shaking. I'd like to ask London why he wasn't explicit about all this yesterday, but complaining about a detective not being forthcoming with the defense isn't exactly a winning strategy. He didn't hesitate to show me his involvement with the mafias yesterday. What's he got left to hide? Blind is negative 14? Why were you and your partner in Center City at the night, Detective? I didn't eat dinner and I was really in the mood for kind of a hot soup, and my partner was a knife to indulge me on taking a drive. What the hell is there to even press when his answer is that simple? I'm almost tempted to... Dumb questions, Detective, but did you have your body cameras on? Officers aren't required to turn on body cameras when responding to an emergency, and detectives aren't required to wear body cameras at all. Like I said, dumb question. And how did you and your partner go about clearing the building? It was tense, searching the rooms with that racket blaring from upstairs. You still searching for subjects? Rogers had already reported the manner of his partner's death. We weren't going to run upstairs and try to defibrillate. The reports were made over comms around 10:17 p.m. It's one of 7 valid approaches the department advises in critical scenarios. Did you ever lose sight of your partner? I might have. So she must have lost sight of you. If I can't see you, you see me, you can't see me. That's not speculation, Your Honor, just grade school logic. Humu, overruled. Yes, me and my partner were separated as we cleared the building. For more than a minute, I'd say. Interesting. Press him on the fucking soup. Was the soup any good, Detective? I never got any in the end. Had this hole-in-the-wall place of mine, but when we got there, it turned out that they got out of business since last month. It'd been a while since I last stopped by. I guess I always knew they weren't that successful, but I thought I'd lose some of its charm if it got popular. Maybe if I hadn't been so selfish, it'd been there. You never know how much you miss that 7 out of 10 restaurant till it's gone, you know? Your Honor's relevance? I'll allow it. Or I won't punish it, at least. Now ask a real question. But by any chance, did your partner have a body camera going? It's a deeply human question, so I'm not punishing it. Perhaps out of characteristic abundance of respect for the rules. Matter of fact, I believe she did. So, first 4 of our city's brave policemen to arrive at the scene of the crime, only one of them thought to turn their body camera on. It's my understanding that Rogers couldn't turn his on, and it is broken early in the week. And Chopin? I don't know why he didn't have his on. Does Emma know? Does Officer Rogers? Thank you for giving us all that to chew on, Detective London. Come on, give me a break. I was trying to be helpful. No, I mean it. Blackjack. I'm especially interested to hear you describe how my client was unconscious and helpless by the time he first appeared on any body cam. Shall we review that footage together? I wonder if we can pinpoint exactly how many wounds he received between his arrest and when his mugshot was taken. Redirect, Your Honor? What is she doing now? The prosecution called Detective London as their witness and asked their question. I don't know, I just had the chance to ask her own questions during the cross-examination. The people can redirect if they have additional questions for the witness. So isn't just one for them and one for us? More like an eye for an eye for an eye until justice is blind and bloody. She wants another round. Why? Just stalling? Detective London, are you aware of an ongoing police investigation for a figure known as the Hound of Ikaria? Not stalling. Approach, Your Honor. Wait, do I finally get to say the line? Okay. Oh, so and they're already here. Alright, buddy. This Hound of Ikaria is obviously some kind of case that the organized crime department is working on. Detective London isn't qualified to speak on it. Homicide, organized crime, is there that big of a difference? Depends on the career of the witness in question. Detective London, for example, he wanted to make her JoJo reference. Spent 6 years in the organized crimes unit. He what? You didn't know that? Where are you taking this, Emma? I hate to admit it, but I think I need spoilers as well. If we're gonna ask about him, what's he gonna say? That the Hound of Ikaria is an assassin who leaves calling cards at each of his kills, terrorizing the house's perceived enemies without shame, and that the lead suspect in those cases is a man around Sosuke's age and height, with gray blue hair, a modded spine, and a large tattoo of a dog across his back. Sosuke, you vain son of a bitch, you got made with your shirt off? Bless you. You could not let the jury hear that, Your Honor. But I really want to. If organized crime wanted to arrest Sosuke, they would have done so already. He's on trial here for today for these 5 counts and nothing else. The defense has once again claimed that their client is merely some veteran that has been victimized by greater forces. But the police believe that he's, in fact, the deadliest soldier that Ikaria have at their disposal. That's not irrelevant. No, it's just prejudicial as hell. Girls fighting, but obeying the legal precedent. But the tension, the human drama. He'll just be giving a summary. The case file won't enter the record. So you won't even give me a chance to object to the evidence? Your Honor, if you do this, the jury will be spoiled within seconds, and I'll have my client served a mistrial before the day is through. And some lucky adjutant will get to have all the rest of the fun. I severed the jury's feed for the time being. I'd like to hear exactly what the witness has to say before ruling on the testimonies. But, Your Honor, the gallery, it's not your concern, nor a concern of justice. This trial will remain open to the public until such a time as I or the state feel like it shouldn't be. Thank you, Your Honor. What just happened? The jury is going to take a bathroom break. Emma will get to ask her questions, but in all likelihood, the agenda will make sure they never hear the answers. So we aren't any worse off? Sosuke might be. This gallery is filled to the brim with cops. They all think he killed Chopin. If legend regales us all with the tales of the Hound's exploits on top of that... Don't worry, Sosuke, they can't do anything to you here, because we're in a courtroom. I won't spend the rest of my life in this room, Sarah, and even if I could, I wouldn't. Alright, I've got to end the stream. Oh, for real? Hey, Rockford, that witness guy who played on you made you look dumb? He's finally here. Alright, bye, chat.